Kevin here. So we're starting a new course this week with our live videos. And my goal with this channel, one of my goals with this channel has always been to try to make it possible for others to do what I do week in and week out as I play for my church. I know there are a lot of churches and a lot of church pianists who are trying to do their best in their responsibilities as a church pianist, but because there are not a lot of materials and resources out there that teach how to play congregational style hymns, that teach how to play church piano specifically, it can be a real struggle sometimes. And I've talked to a lot of students, almost every student that I teach here at the college and even private lessons, they come because they want to learn how to play church piano, hymns, and accompaniment. They've had the lessons, they've had the classical, the sight reading, and all of that. There is an abundance of teachers and materials and courses that teach all of that. There is not a lot out there that teaches how to play hymns, how to play for churches. And so we could discuss different reasons for that, but I wanted to do my part to try to combat that lack of resources. And so this course is designed to help you, no matter where you are as a church pianist, to improve your ability and to do your best. Because the Lord is worthy of that. I truly believe that you desire to do your best to try to help your church, your congregation, to praise the Lord through music. And so because of that, you want to do your best as a pianist, as an accompanist. And so I want to do my best to try to help you with that. So there might be some watching this that you have not been playing piano for very long. I will say this, just as far as prerequisites go, this course is designed for really no matter where you are to take you further as a church pianist. But just to keep in mind, most of the things that I'm going to go through, it will be helpful if you've had probably at least a couple years of lessons. I usually qualify it this way. If you can play piano, but you just struggle to play church piano, you struggle to play hymns or accompaniment for church, but you know how to play piano as far as sight reading, you've had lessons, you know how to read music, you just struggle playing church piano, then this is for you. If you know how to play church piano, you're already playing hymns, but you want to learn new techniques, new patterns, new embellishments, and add-ins, fill-ins, things like that, then this course will also be a help to you. I'm going to start kind of at the beginning, at the basics, and I would encourage you, no matter what level of experience you're at with hymn playing, I do this with all of my students, I start them back at the beginning, because I think it's very helpful to make sure that you haven't missed anything along the way. Sometimes a lot of students will come to me and they've been playing hymns, they kind of got thrown into it at a young age, which is great. It's a great way to learn. But the downside of that is that sometimes you just kind of settle into your own style of playing that isn't always correct, that you kind of fudge through some rhythms or sometimes through some chords that aren't super accurate to the hymnal, but you just got used to playing it that way, and then you get into some bad habits. So that's why I encourage you to just kind of be open-minded, be willing to just go back to basics and make sure that there's nothing you're missing. I'm going to start with some foundational left-hand principles that are going to be a help to you. So I am very grateful that I have a phone stand today. I'm not just trying to hold my phone in one hand like I've done for a lot of my other videos. I actually do have a phone stand. So I'm going to bring it up here closer to the keyboard so that you can hopefully see what I'm doing as I'm doing some of these left-hand techniques. But this allows me to be able to have both hands free while I'm doing the video, which is very helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and move the stand closer to the piano, and then we'll get started into the course, talking about what hymn playing is and how to get started on that, specifically with your left hand. So we move you all a little closer to the keyboard here and tilt this down so you can get a good view of the keys. There we go. Okay. I think that'll be good. That'll be a good angle. I think that's as close as I can get. Okay. Good. Let's do that. Okay. So You won't probably be able to see my face for all of this, and that's fine. You don't need to see my face. So I'm going to start with At Calvary. It's 4/4, and it's in the key of C. So it's a very simple one to start with congregational hymn style playing. So if I were to play this for church with the congregational singing, I would do something like this. Standard go-to style, and everything that I'm going to go through over the next several weeks in these courses, I will cover pretty much everything that I'm doing there, at least give you the generic principles of what I'm doing, and then you'll go on from there and undoubtedly develop your own style. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is that everybody can kind of have their own style, but there are some generic principles, and so that's what I want to start with. So with hymn playing, you've got obviously the hymnal in front of you, so I'll put this. I've got my soul stirring hymnal. That's what we use here at our college. So at Calvary here, I'll just kind of hold it in front of the phone, and you can see what I'm reading off of. You've got everything written in 4-part harmony. So you've got your soprano, your alto, your tenor, and bass, and they all have the same rhythms. But you won't be playing it that way, and that's usually the struggle. Why people say, "Well, I know how to sight read, I know how to read music, but I don't know how to play. I don't know how to play hymns," and that's because you're not going to be reading straight what's off the page. So if I were to read just what's written there, it would just be. That's rhythmically a little bit boring. So what we do with our left hand is what makes the difference. That's really kind of the anchor point of congregational hymn playing, is what your left hand does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce to you where I start students with the left hand, because there's a lot going on in the left hand if you want a really full pattern, but it's got to start somewhere. Okay? So the crucial aspect with the left hand is, I'm going to bring this back up here again. So the crucial aspect with your left hand is you need to be able to follow the bass note. That's kind of the number one thing to look for as you're reading through and playing the song. In your left hand, you're going to follow the bass note. You're also going to follow the chords, but when we first get started, you don't need to worry about those as much. For this very first lesson, the first stage, all you're going to do is, in your left hand, you're going to play octaves based off of the bass note. Okay? And the right hand can just play exactly what's written there, the soprano and alto part, for right now. We'll get into some right hand techniques later. So with the left hand, you're going to look at what's written here on the bass note, and you're going to follow that in octaves, but the rhythm is not going to be the same rhythm that's written. So here we need to look at our time signature. We're in a 4/4 time signature. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll feel those strong beats on beats 1 and 3. Okay? So what we're going to do then is we're going to play on beats 1 and 3 in our left hand. We're going to play an octave that matches what the bass is singing on that beat. Okay? So for this first line here, it's just C all the way across. So on beats 1 and 3 of both of these measures, we're going to play C octaves. Okay? So that'll sound like this. Okay? And a couple things to notice is that the C octave that I'm playing is based off, here's my bass note that's written, is the C3, and I'm going to actually add the C an octave below that, which is C2. Okay? So as a general rule, whatever octave I use is always, the top note is always the same as the bass note. So I don't play this C octave or this C octave. I play it right here because this top note of my octave is the same as the bass note that's written in the hymnal. That's kind of tells me what range of the piano I'm going to be in. So let me play that again. Remember, we're playing on beats 1 and 3. Okay. All right. My next measure there, let me pull this up here. So my next measure there, I go to a G in the bass. I move up to the G, and there's a G all the way across there, and then back to C. So the next two measures, G on beat 1, G on beat 3, C on beat 1, C on beat 3, okay? So I'm going to play those next two measures like this. Okay? And then going forward through the song, the next two measures are pretty similar. Okay, so I just played on beat 4 there, you might notice that. Let me show you. Here's the one exception of the rule. You will play always on beat 1 and 3. Occasionally you will play on some of the other beats if the bass note moves. So right here on this measure, you'll notice that beat 1 is a C, beat 3 is a C, but beat 4 moves to an E. Because our bass note moves, anytime the bass note moves, rule of thumb, always play a new octave in your left hand. And this is a standard no matter what level, no matter what pattern you're playing. Even when we get to doing all the fancy chording in the left hand, I always try to insert a new octave every time the bass note moves. So I'm going to play C octave on beat 1, C octave on beat 3, and I'm also going to add an E octave on beat 4 of that measure. So that will sound like this. Let's get into the chorus. Chorus is pretty straightforward. Extremely exciting yet, but like I said, this is where you got to start. You got to start somewhere, and this is very helpful in making sure students are accurately following. What I find a lot of times is sometimes students will cheat that left-hand octave a little bit. They'll play something that sounds right or feels right to them, but doesn't match what's in the hymnal. The hymnal is your go-to guide. When you're playing for congregational singing, it's not the time to do chord substitutions and reharmonizations. You can do all that for an offertory or an arrangement or a special or something, but when you're playing for the congregation to sing, and they've got the hymnals open, they're going to be singing the parts that are written, so you can't be making up new chords. You've got to stick very strictly to the hymnal. And so, starting with the basics like that, just following that bass note with your left hand on the strong beats, and then inserting a new octave anytime, any other beat that your bass note moves, okay? So that's 4/4. Let me show you how it works in 3/4. It's a similar concept, it's just a different meter. So let's go to probably the most well-known 3/4 hymn, the most well-known hymn, period, Amazing Grace. Okay, so this is in the key of G. And 3/4 is different from 4/4 in that 4/4 has two strong beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got beats 1 and 3. In 3/4, you only have one strong beat every measure on beat 1, on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you're only going to be playing octaves on beat 1, again, with the exception that you will play one every time the bass note moves, even if it's not on beat 1. Okay? So here in Amazing Grace, we've got here on the bottom, in the key of G, we've got a pickup measure here. So also another rule of thumb that everybody likes is that when you're playing a pickup measure, you don't have to do anything in your left hand. All you're going to do on pickup measures is play right hand. Left hand pattern never starts until the first full downbeat of the first full measure. So on this beat here, don't play anything. But you're going to play right here on the first beat of that first full measure. And we've got G on beat 1.
So we'll just play that G octave. But notice here our bass moves on beat 3. We do this dun dun dun. We have 3 and. We have a movement here. So what that means is we need to follow that with our bass note as well. Because the bass moves, we need to follow that on an octave. Even if it's on an and not on the beat itself, we still need to follow that, okay? This next measure, we just have D both times, so we can just hold that D for 3 beats. Next measure, we've got 2 beats on the E, and then we drop down to C. So again, we're going to follow that with our octave, okay? This one is a simple song, but if you follow what's written in the hymnal, there is a lot of bass movement, so it will keep you moving, okay? That's pretty common, too, with 3/4, because you're holding for so long on 3/4 songs, because you're holding for 3 beats instead of just every 2 beats, like in 4/4. It's pretty common that something will happen somewhere in the measure where the bass note moves, so you really got to keep your eyes out for those bass note movements. So if I'm playing this, based on what I just showed you, it will sound like this. Again, I know it sounds very basic, maybe a little boring, but we gotta start somewhere. We gotta start down the basics. And this is a fantastic song because it moves so much. It's a great song at forcing you to really read those bass movements and follow them with your octaves. Again, my top note of my octave is always the note that's written in the hymnal itself. So for my G octave, I'm not playing here, I'm not playing up here, I'm starting my G octave here because my first bass note is right here, and then I just follow the same movement of the bass line through the hymnal, okay? All right, so that's what we do for 3/4. We're not going to get into 6/8 just yet. We'll save that for its own video as far as playing compound meter, compound time, like 6/8, 9/8, 12/8. We'll do a special video on those. They aren't as common, and there's kind of some unique things on how you do those patterns. So for right now, we'll just look at this 4/4 and 3/4. Those are going to be the 2 most common that you're going to be playing. So let's just look through here in the hymnal. I'm going to go straight across the page here. Give you a few more examples. Victory in Jesus here, 243. We're in 4/4, so we know we're going to be playing on beats 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to play left-hand octaves on those, and then we're just going to follow the bass note. So this first full measure, we've got A flat, we've got a pickup measure, so we don't need to play anything on the left hand there. We'll start right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then on beat 4 here, we actually move to the C. So we need to follow that in our octaves. And then same thing here, we've got a D flat on beats 1 and 3. And then on beat 4, we move up to the F, so we need to follow that with our bass note as well. Okay, and then back up to the E flat. So if I play that first line of Victory in Jesus using this left-hand octaves method, it'll sound like this. So notice those couple times where I played the 3, 4, 1. So I played on beat 4 those couple times where beat 4 moved to a different note. So this is your starting point. To those of you who are familiar with hymn playing and have heard a lot of hymn playing, like I said, it may sound a little simple and boring to you, but the great thing about this is that this allows, so those of you that are watching that are still kind of struggling with hymn playing, and you feel like, man, all this back and forth and chords, patterns, and stride patterns in the left hand, I can't do all that. I don't have that kind of coordination. All you need to do is just play octaves. And this is a great starting point for somebody who just wants to start into hymn playing. And as already mentioned, it's also a great it's a great review point for those who have been hymn playing for a while to make sure they haven't gone into some habits of playing some octaves that aren't there in their left hand. So this is a starting point to play left hand octaves, and just challenge yourself to do that. I would say just take a hymn and just work on just a couple measures a day. And just try to really focus in on playing on those strong beats. Beats 1 and 3 and 4/4, beat 1 and 3/4. And then anytime the bass note moves, make sure that you get used to tracking that bass note with your eye. You've got to get into that habit anytime you're reading a hymnal to always follow what that bass note is doing, because your left hand needs to follow that as you're playing the hymn. Okay? So just get used to that. Play a couple measures a day, and then next day come back and try the next couple measures. Try putting it together. Take it slow. Just work on transitions. This is just a good practice technique in general. But you're going to be tempted to want to try to sit down and play through the whole song, and then that be your practice. I'm going to sit down and try to play this whole song with this octaves method. If you're not used to doing this, if you can't sight read it quickly, if you're actually struggling to read those octaves and to do this, if this is new to you, don't do that. Don't try to read the whole thing in one day. Just start taking little sections at a time. Work on each transition. Okay, I'm struggling to make this move from this octave to this octave, so let's just work on that for a little bit. Work just left hand by itself, honestly. Maybe just for Victory in Jesus, you might just take the first day and just do the first line. Just do the left hand by itself and get used to playing that. Slow the tempo down if you need to. But get used to following that left hand with the hymnal. I will say this, if you're going to do that, where you're going to pull the right hand away and just do left hand, which I encourage you to do if you need to, make sure that you're following the hymn in your head so that you can keep track of your timing. And you might even sing along with it, or maybe have somebody else sing the song with you so that you can follow along with. You need to always have in your head, you should always be singing the song in your head as you're playing it. You never want to just be blindly playing notes. You always want to be following the song in your head as you're playing it. So you want to sit there and think through. You might sing it out loud. I heard an old story. You can sing it out loud. If you don't feel coordinated enough to play and sing at the same time, like I said, have somebody else play and sing for you. If you're good at keeping track of tunes in your head, then just kind of sing it in your head. But make sure that you're following that timing and following the pattern of the song as you're playing it. Don't just play notes and octaves by themselves with no reference point. Okay? So that's a starting point. That's the first lesson. Get my phone out here, but I appreciate all of you who took the time to watch. And I'll be coming out each Thursday evening with a new video in this series. So talking about left-hand octaves today. Next week we'll start getting into some of the left-hand octave chord pattern, which is kind of the standard for hymn playing. So we'll get into that next week. But this is the starting point. This is where I start all of my students, and it helps them. I've seen great progress with them learning to be accurate to the hymnal. Even students have been playing for a long time, been playing hymns. I've noticed their playing becomes a lot cleaner because they're used to reading those left-hand notes and making sure they're following the bass note and not just making something up that sounds right to them, which is not always, what sounds right to you is not always right. So make sure that you're following the left hand that's written in the book. Start off with just the octaves only on the strong beats, and whenever the bass note moves. And then from there, we'll move into some of the other left-hand patterns starting next week. So thanks everybody for watching. I will be posting this to the YouTube channel very soon. I'll try to get to that tonight. And if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't followed on Facebook, please do that. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do that. And I hope that these videos will be a help to you. So we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.